Everyone, and welcome to this edition, the Friday edition of Just Parlays. I'm Jim Williams. Alongside me on the other side, there we go, that way, is Chris King. Chris, good night last night, my friend.
Yeah, I mean, it was another good night. It was nice to see Washington decide to play hockey after, struggling against Columbus. They ruined Martin St. Louis, we knew as a coach of Montreal, beating them 5-2. Pittsburgh won. We said Boston was going to have a tough time with Carolina after losing Marchand and Bertrand. They didn't even show up. They got beat 6-0.
Right.
So, rough night for them. Good night for us. Kind of
take it.
what Mark Levy used to say, when it's too cold for them, it's just right for us. That's the way it went for Boston. But, a lot of trades yesterday in the NBA, too, going right up to the wire.
I don't know. Which one did you think was the best? I'm not sure how some of them worked, to be honest. I was curious that there was a lot of movement, but not specifically anything that was going to make one team, leap up to a level beyond what they were at that point.
The trade that didn't make sense to me is Dallas giving up on Kristaps Porzingis to get Spencer Dinwiddie and Davis Bertans from Washington. I mean, I don't get it. Dinwiddie shooting 38%. Bertans has been horrible. Can't get off the bench half the time. And you're trading away a 7'3" guy that can shoot from the outside when he's healthy, is a double-double threat almost every night, for two
guys named Mo.
Yeah, they're bridge players. I mean, Dinwiddie, he can distribute, he can score, and stuff like that, but is that how you want to surround Luka Doncic? Is with a bunch of,
role players?
Yeah, basically.
Yeah.
I know Doncic got a big night last night. He went for 51 and went over the Clippers, but can he sustain that over a long period? I don't think so. I mean, Tim Hardaway's out for them with that broken foot, so you're going to rely on Dinwiddie and Bertans to contribute. If they can't, what does that do for Dallas?
I don't think it does much for Dallas, to be honest. And it's one of those head scratchers. Because you don't usually, how often do you get a big who can shoot from the perimeter?
Right.
I mean, I don't know. I got nothing. I can't tell you.
And then on the flip side, you got the Lakers who did nothing.
Right.
There was talk they were going to try to trade Russell Westbrook to get John Wall. They didn't want to give up their 2027 first-round pick because apparently that's the next one they can trade.
Right.
So now they're still stuck with the same lousy team that they had going into the trade deadline, a team that lost to Milwaukee and then they lost to Portland. I mean, they did nothing. They're going to have to scour the buyout market and hope they can get somebody. But who wants to go there right now?
I don't know. I don't think people are lining up in the queue to get there. So, again, you're right. The Lakers not doing anything after I pretty much for 2 days said that I was looking for the Lakers to pull the trigger on some deal. You were skeptical. I'll be honest. It's true. You were skeptical because you were talking about the fact that, they were maxed out from a cap standpoint and above it, and there was nowhere to go.
You'd have to get back if you're trying to deal with Westbrook. I mean, you're talking, I think with a trade kicker, his contract goes with a $47 million or something like that.
Yeah.
For a guy that's not doing anything.
That is not a good thing. However, there is a good thing, and that's why we're here for you, folks. We're here to give you good things. And the good thing is our friends at Caesar Sportsbook. Okay. Now, what Caesar Sportsbook is going to do is they have a brand new offer only for the mobile app. If you're a first-time user and you're a fan of winners and winners, why wouldn't you be, right? We're here for you every day. All new signups will get a match of their first deposit with a free bet up to $1,500 when you deposit at least $50 and use the promo code, which is winners, spelled a little differently. You can see it on the screen below. It's also in our show box. Okay, so the deal is that, look, The great thing about Caesars Sportsbook is that it also gives you Caesars rewards. Okay, so you get a double deal in that one. In this case, if you're a first-time user, download the app to your phone. Get it at the App Store. If you have an iPhone, you can get it at the Android Store. If you have an Android phone, so easily accessible, download it. Put in $50 as your first deposit, and you're going to get a free bet up to $1,500 when you deposit that $50 and use the very important promo code winners, which is we said right there, scrolls by and tells us exactly how to spell that. Okay, it's really winner with the stock moniker for Caesars on it. So there you go. All right, cool. So today, Chris, my friend, Evan Weiner, friend of the show, is going to come on and talk a little bit about the history of Super Bowl. Unfortunately, he had a last-minute thing that had to be done. We all know that kind of things happen. So I will help you and help the fans out there real quick understand the Super Bowl. The first one, 1967 Super Bowl, which was played in Los Angeles at the Coliseum, of course, was the Green Bay Packers and the Kansas City Chiefs, two of the most colorful coaches of all time, Vince Lombardi, and, of course, Hank Stram for the Kansas City Chiefs. Now, story told to me by Steve Sable many, many years ago was that after, if you remember, that was the year that Dallas won, what in essence Green Bay beat Dallas in what many referred to as the Ice Bowl, or pick your adjective for cold, and that was what they did with it, right? After the game, and this gives you an idea how casual things were back in the day. After the game, Vince Lombardi actually used to walk back and forth from his home to Lambeau Field. And it didn't matter whether it was snow, it didn't matter what it was like outside. Vince liked to walk to the stadium. So after the game, he invited Steve and Ed, Steve's dad, the Sables, back to his house for lunch. A belated lunch or an early supper, whatever you want to call it. And of course, it was right after Christmas. And Vince, the guys went downstairs after lunch and went downstairs into the basement where they had a little bit of a rec room going on down there. And Vince wanted to show off his new putting skills. During the course of that time, he told the Sables, I don't know why we're even going to play this stupid game out in California. We just won the championship. Now we have to go out and do this stupid, situation for, play the game against Kansas City. The game was not a sellout. Best ticket in the building cost you $22. Cheapest ticket in the building cost you $5. It was aired on both CBS, which had Ray Scott, Pat Summerall, and Frank Gifford. Gifford and Summerall basically worked the sidelines. They did a 15-minute pregame show, which gives you an idea how things have changed in that regard. And over on NBC, it was the team who I grew up watching and listening to, was, of course, Al DeRogatis and Kurt Gowdy. So on the CBS side, Ray Scott and Frank Gifford, with Summerall doing the sidelines. No sidelines on NBC. Game was broadcast in color on NBC and on CBS, which in the day, CBS really didn't televise all their games in color, just certain ones. Assume the Super Bowl at that time, which was just called the AFC NFC championship game, that was the whole situation in that regard. So, that's how it got started. There's also the urban myth of who actually came up with the name Super Bowl. All right. Now, Pete Rozelle, who was the commissioner of the NFL at that time, was trying to come up with a name. as was the head of the AFL, which of course was Lamar Hunt. And Hunt, this is the year, but whether this is true or not, it is the legend how it got to that name, and that was um, Lamar Hunt's daughter came up with the idea that, she had a super ball, which was a little toy at the time you could throw and it would bounce in 17 different directions. Um, she said, why not call it Super Bowl? It's a bowl game. And so her father thought that was good, ran it by Pete Rozelle, rest is history. Whether that actually happened or somewhere back in the minds of Rozelle and Lamar Hunt, they came up with the name. I don't know. But the clever side of it was that was the concept. Now, as we know, for this is 56. As we know, last year was the first time a team hosted the game in their own town and also won the game in their own hometown. Now we have a chance 2 years in a row for the same thing to happen, where a team hosts and a team wins. So after 55 years of not happening, all of a sudden we get it back to back. Sorry?
And interestingly enough, Matthew Stafford has a chance to become the third quarterback in Super Bowl history to win the title in his first year with a new team.
Mm-hmm.
Who knows who the other two are?
I'm gonna guess, and that's exactly what it's 100% guess. You said the first time they're with the team.
That's going to be the third. He can be the third quarterback to win in his first year win the Super Bowl in his first year with a new team.
Was Jim Plunkett one of them?
No.
Okay. Who were they?
Well, one of them happened last year.
Oh, Brady. Yeah, that makes sense.
The other one, Trent Dilfer.
Oh, the 1 year with the Ravens.
Yep.
How about that? And then, Trent was summarily dismissed for Elvis Gerbeck, who only played 1 year. He literally played that 1 year in Baltimore and retired. So.
Any good anyway.
Sorry?
I said he wasn't any good anyway.
Yeah.
I don't know what Rick was thinking by going after Elvis Gerbeck.
I thought you meant Trent. I was going to say Trent was pretty decent.
Well, Trent was a game manager.
Right, just like Brad Johnson was a game manager. Right. Rex Grossman, guys who won Super Bowls who, were or got to Super Bowls who were serviceable quarterbacks. Right. For all intents and purposes, you could say that Ryan Tannehill, even though I think he was a little better than both of those guys, was brought in that kind of situation. So anyway, Super Bowl has been fun. It started in the 1970s, the advertising aspect of it. It wasn't until the 1980s before that we got what we now see as a Super Bowl extravaganza halftime show, where in essence, that actually is a show that is put on by NFL Entertainment. It's a separate entity. It's a separate remote truck and crew, and everything is different from just the game itself. This is a concert, and it's produced as such. And this year it's going to be basically an homage to rap. So we'll see that coming up. But
usually when the halftime show comes around, it means that I can go get a snack because I haven't seen a good halftime show in my opinion since 2010 when the Boom were there.
That was pretty good. Favorite Super Bowl commercial? Do you have a couple that stand out in your mind?
I always like the Bud Bowls. Those were always entertaining.
Yeah, the Bud Bowls were fun.
I like the freezer.
Yeah.
The freezers.
Yeah, of course, the one that everybody keeps that people talk about for years and years was the Coca-Cola commercial with Joe Green, where he tossed the jersey to the kid, and the kid gave him his Coca-Cola. There's been some pretty. There was the first Apple commercial, which was very freaky. You had all of these. It was all shot in black and white. It was very cinematic and all that crazy. And of course, it wouldn't be a Super Bowl without the Clydesdales from Anheuser-Busch. So there's been some fun ones, and there's going to be some fun ones this year as well. But
The thicker commercials with Betty White and Abe Vigoda were funny too.
yeah, they were good. The one, the Volkswagen commercial where the kid was wearing the Darth Vader helmet, and his father was flipping the lights on and off from the kitchen, watching out the windows, trying to see how this kid was freaking out because he could make the lights go on and off with his hands. So yeah, there's.
Talking about the Budweiser.
Hey, James, buddy. Hey, James. Why don't you be the first one to hit like and subscribe? We would greatly appreciate that, along with everybody else out there. You guys have a favorite Super Bowl commercial or a favorite Super Bowl memory? Let us know. We're always here to figure that out.
I can tell you my least favorite Super Bowl memory, and that was Super Bowl 25.
I was there. That was.
Oh, so I can blame you for what happened.
No, I'll tell you what. My theory in this is if Scott Norwood takes and makes that field goal, then we do not have to put up with the craziness that was the legend of Bill Parcells. I mean, Bill.
Didn't have to put up with Jimmy Johnson either.
Well, Jimmy had nothing to do with that one.
No, but I mean, he came afterwards.
Yeah, I can't throw shade on Jimmy. Jimmy was always good to me. I did games for the University of Miami, and Jimmy was there and was very helpful. But
he didn't do anything for me.
That's true. That is true. He didn't. But yeah, that game was it wasn't a particularly good game to watch because it was kind of choppy, but it was the first one that wasn't particularly a blowout, and it was one of the first ones that was decided by either missing or making a field goal. Was it Super Bowl? Yeah, Super Bowl 5 in Miami was the O'Brien kick, and Ernie Accorsi, who for many years was the PR guy for the Baltimore Colts, and then moved up the chain to an assistant general manager, and then went with George Young to the Giants, where they built the team that made Parcells famous. Ernie Accorsi was lamenting on the day that Super Bowl 5 was being held that he was on the field during pre-games, which is often what a PR person was doing. One of them would be on the field, the other one will be up in the booth working the press box. And Jim, he was the last of the straight-on kickers, and he wasn't making anything. I mean, he hit everything but hit the crossbar. I mean, the joke was, he's basically kicking the dirt. He wasn't hitting the ball properly. And so, allegedly, according to Accorsi, when Ernie's on the way up in the elevator at the Orange Bowl, and he says to the reporters, "For God's sake, I hope this game doesn't come down to a field goal, because if it does, we're screwed. I mean, because Jim's not making anything." Of course, it does come down to a kick, and it happens to go through the uprights for a win. And the funny thing about that, if you recall, in Super Bowl 3, that was the famous thing where Carol Rosenbloom got really mad at Don Shula for losing the game to the Jets, which is the first time the AFL won. And
the prohibitive underdog in that game too.
Absolutely. And then you turn around, and just 2 years later, they win, but this time they're winning as a member of the AFC and not a member of the NFL. So
now, I was going to ask him, but since he's not here, I'll ask you.
Okay.
Speaking of Joe Willie Namath, did Don Shula caught Baltimore Colts that game by starting Earl Morrall over Johnny Unitas?
I would say he didn't, because two things. One, Earl Morrall was more than a serviceable quarterback, and he never got the credit. He was very much like a Frank Wright, who you know from the Buffalo days, right?
Yeah.
So Earl Morrall was not, just a guy, a body you throw out there. He was a legitimate quarterback. I honestly don't think, and this is heresy, I don't think John Unitas would have made a lick of difference in that game. I just
yeah, but they scored their 7 points with United's on the field.
Great, he was on the field. That was so far at the end of his career that I just don't think that was that if he started the game that would have changed much.
Well, I just ask because you look at World, he went to Miami, he did the same thing there. He was hurt for a while, then he got supplanted by Greasy. Greasy got hurt, and then Greasy would come back in. Mm-hmm. But he never started a Super Bowl where he won.
That's true, but you could make the same case that you wouldn't have been in that Super Bowl if he hadn't played. Because he led the team there, Again, was he the greatest quarterback? No. Was he better than, was he a good game manager like the two guys we talked about just a few minutes ago, like a Trent Dilfer or somebody like that? That's his job. That's what he was doing. But I don't think in Super Bowl III, I honestly believe without question that it was a game where I don't know whether the team wasn't prepared or whatever you want to say, but I just think that Colts took way too much for granted in that game than the Jets did, and it was kind of an ironic thing because if you remember, Weave Eubank was coaching the Jets, and of course you had Don Shula coaching, the Colts, and Eubanks and Shula, Shula was part of the Eubanks tree. So we've been it's you have the master and the student, and on that particular day, the master beat the student. But then there was the famous Carol Rosenblum telling his son and everybody else, and Shula, when Shula asked, because in those days all coaches were on 1-year contracts, and he asked if he was coming back, and Carol Rosenblum was off to Hawaii and said, well, I'm not going to talk about it until I get back. Joe Robbie calls and asks if Shula, wants the job in Miami. He's offering him twice the money he was playing in Baltimore. Shula goes in, talks to Rosenblum's son, says, I really need to figure this out. Do you guys want me back or don't you? And, the son said, hey, my father told you that we're not talking anything until he gets back. So Carol Rosenblum finds out by picking up the newspaper in Hawaii that Don Shula was now the head coach of the Miami Dolphins. The rest is history. So there you go. We got some fun stuff to talk about here. Let's jump into it. In our Super Bowl preview show, right here on Winners and Winers Sports Betting Network, and let's go to the elaborate.
Yeah.
How we got here?
Yeah, the Rams. They finished 12-5 in the regular season. Obviously, they won the NFC West. They came on Arizona in the wild card round. We watched them both that 27-3 lead against Tampa Bay before they rallied, kicked the game-winning field goal as time expired, thanks to Cooper Kupp catching that 44-yard pass. And the zero look that we talked about ad nauseum about what Todd Bowles was thinking, and how Tampa Bay forgot to play coverage. Some of the guys looked like they were confused. Vontae David basically stood there and let Cooper Kupp run by.
Right. So am I supposed to cover that guy?
And then, of course, after that, the Rams got to go back home. They were down 17-7 after 3 quarters against the 49ers and scored 13 points in the fourth quarter, cleaned up 20-17. Helped by the fact that Trubisky couldn't handle a pass that you couldn't gift wrap to him any better, allowing the Rams to take a field goal to advance the Super Bowl. Cincinnati, they were 10-7 in the regular season. Sadly, they still won in the AFC North. They because that shows how bad things were there. As Cleveland fell off a cliff, Baltimore fell apart in the second half of the season, and Pittsburgh was Pittsburgh. Bengals beat the Raiders 26-19 in the wild card. Everybody remembers the questionable touchdown pass to Tyler Boyd where there's the inadvertent whistle that then the official tried to say, we didn't blow a whistle, even though you could hear it on the replays.
Dogs all around the stadium heard it.
Yeah, I don't even remember what their excuse was after that. I just knew that they weren't officiating any more games. I know we talked to Bill Bender about it. Then they went on to beat Tennessee 19-16 in the divisional round. Despite Joe Burrow getting hammered, he got sacked 9 times in that game. Of course, they were helped by the fact that Ryan Tannehill threw 3 interceptions, including one on the first play of the game, one when they were in the red zone in the third quarter, and just to cap it off, one on their last play from scrimmage. So I guess that's coming full circle. You start with an interception, you end with an interception.
Right. And one in between, one for halftime.
Right. And then, of course, they were down 21-3 in the first half for the Chiefs. They outscored them the rest of the way, 24-3, winning in overtime when Patrick Mahomes threw an interception. It seems like the Bengals went to that 3-man rush and dropping 8 guys back. Kansas City didn't know what to do with it. And I'm going to wonder if they're going to try that again here against the Rams, because Stafford had trouble in those situations where they were only 3 men rushing during the regular season. Because, it makes guys, it cuts down on the free space out there. It could be something they could try and neutralize Cooper Kupp coming out of the slot. But can they afford to give Stafford that much time? Because, as you know, Cincinnati wasn't necessarily the greatest pass rushing team in the league.
No.
The imagination.
I think the key on that is I don't think the Rams are not going to. The Rams will try to rush, but that works if you don't have a running game. You can rush 3 if you don't have a running game.
Right.
The Rams' running game is schizophrenic at best. So they may try it, and they may try to disguise it, and they may try to make it look like they're going to have 4 or 5 guys up on the line of scrimmage, and at the last second drop it. The problem with that is just what you just said, and that's Matt Stafford. There's very few defensive situations that Stafford has not seen before, so that gives him an advantage on that. But my question to you is, the Bengals run the offense like so many teams do now, where the quarterback is never under center. If you've got the edge rushers that the Rams have, and they do have 2 of the best, and then of course they got Aaron Donald, does it make more sense for you literally to come up to the line of scrimmage and go from there, not giving the edge rushers time to get to potentially to Joe Burrow? And to be honest, Cincinnati does have a running game. They can run the ball with them. There's a little more flexibility they have than the Rams do. So, what do you think?
The other thing I'm concerned with today is, will Cincinnati go 6 or 7 man protection? Because if you look, every single position for them, all their offensive linemen, their tight ends, and the running backs were below average when it came to pass blocking during the regular season. That doesn't bode well here.
Well, no.
I mean, Burrow was sacked 51 times in the regular season. He was sacked 12 times in the playoffs. If you throw in the sacks that Brandon Allen took, quarterbacks for Cincinnati were sacked 55 times in the regular season. So I've got a sacks that any quarterback team took in the regular season. And the 2 teams that finished ahead of them, if you want to call that ahead of them, were non-playoff teams.
Well, at the end of the day, we'll see. I mean, they've got 2 amazing edge rushers. Vaughn, gets in there, and because look, if you look at what they did, the Rams pushed everything. They bet everything on making it to the Super Bowl this year. They made the trade for Stafford. They made the trade for OBJ. They got Vaughn out of Denver. that's about, they've mortgaged the farm to get there. And, like it, don't like it, how they got there, they got there. So we'll see. But what do we got next on our lookout on the game?
Tail of the team.
Uh-huh.
If you look, the Rams were fifth in the league in passing at 273 1 yard per game. They were 25th against the run, or with the run, like you said. They were schizophrenic with the ground game. They only averaged 99 yards a game in the regular season. They were tied for seventh in scoring offense at 27.1 points per game, 15th in scoring defense. They were ninth in total offense, 372.1 yards, 17th in total defense. The Rams, they were below average of pass defense. They were 22nd, giving up 241.7 yards per game. But if you look, they gave up the second touchdown pass in the league at 17. Only Bill was better, giving up 12. And they were tied for third in interceptions with 19. Opposing quarterbacks only had an 83.8 QB rating against Rams defense. That was fifth in the league. And they were third in the league in sacks with 50. Obviously, for those that aren't familiar or don't necessarily pay attention, QB rating, the perfect one is 158.3. 83.8 is the road number when you get right down to it. Seventh in passing offense, 59 yards per game, 23rd in rushing offense. So they weren't a whole lot better than the Rams in that regard at 102.5 yards per game. They were tied with the Rams, seventh in the league in scoring offense. They were 17th in scoring defense, 20.1 points a night. 13th in total offense. They were 18th in defense. Big issue for the Rams. 26th in pass defense at 248.4 yards per game. They have 26 touchdowns against 13 interceptions. Opposing quarterbacks a 93.1 quarterback rating, which was 18th in the league. The Bengals had 42 sacks in the regular season. Cleveland finished for 11th in that category.
Well, if you look at all that, the key statistics, the funny thing about Super Bowls is that the weirdness happens, right? There's always something that a team has done all year long, and you wonder, why are they getting away from what got them here suddenly and starting to play a different style of football? I don't think that either of these teams can get away from what got them here, because I think with the Rams, it's passing. That's what got them here. The Bengals, it's basically, to be honest, they play, like we talked about the 49ers, they play ugly football, and they try to keep the score low. Their defense is woefully underappreciated, I think. But Joe Burrow just keeps, doesn't matter if he gets sacked 9 times, he gets up and he keeps moving on. So I know that there's a lot of the country who's jumped on the I love Cincinnati Bengals because they're, the underdog. But to me, I don't know talent-wise if they can match up with the Rams.
Yeah, that's going to be the big issue for them. Like I said, sure, Burrow got back up against Tennessee, but can he get back up if he keeps getting crippled by this defensive line of the Rams? If he doesn't have time to throw, the Bengals are going to be in trouble because, like I said, that's their bread and butter. Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, Tyler Boyd. Mixon's going to have a tough time running the ball against that front seven as well, unless they hit a bunch of big pass plays early on, which is going to make them one-dimensional.
Well, I mean,
one-dimensional against the Los Angeles Rams.
Yeah. The key, I think, for the Rams in winning this game is if they can get Matt Stafford enough time, because the secondary of the Bengals isn't bad, but it's not great. Now, the same can be said. Actually, the same cannot be said about the Rams. The Rams' defense secondary is horrible. I mean, they literally pulled Eric Weddle off the retirement line to put him in as a safety. So, Go
I
ahead.
know they have Taylor Rapp back.
Okay.
He's missed the entire season with a concussion, but he's supposed to be back playing Sunday.
All right. We'll be right back. A little bit of a minor problem. Hey, with us, folks. We're going to continue here on the Winners and Whiners Network. Okay.
Obviously, there's going to be some. And look, now we have 2 chances.
Yeah, one's not enough. Let's see. Get rid of that one. All right. Yeah, we had a little technical difficulty. I'm not quite sure what happened there. But thanks for hanging in there for the minute and a half. There were 2 minutes that it took me to reboot my browser. So we got key matchups coming up.
Yeah, obviously the top one, Jim, is like we talked about, the Bengals offensive line against Aaron Donald, Leonard Floyd, and Von Miller.
Mm-hmm.
He can throw a great beat in there, too. He's been had his best year of his career playing alongside Donald this season as well. The Bengals, 55 sacks in the regular season. The only 2 teams that were worse than them, the Bears and the Ravens. I don't think you can point out about those 2 teams is they had young, mobile quarterbacks that probably held on to the ball too long. Obviously, Justin Fields had some growing pains in his rookie season. And Lamar Jackson is Lamar Jackson, and then when he got hurt, Tyler Huntley stepped in. But you can't give up that many sacks and hope that your quarterback get back up. Like I said, they were giving him 12 in the postseason. You got 9 to Tennessee. Now, they only gave up 1 last week, but that's because I don't know what the hell Steve Spagnuolo was thinking. It's not like Joe Burrow was going to try to beat you with his leg like Josh Allen the week before. So, why he didn't decide for an attempt to try and get a pass rush, either he was really concerned with the secondary, or he didn't think he could hope against it, which would make no sense. The Bengals were 30th in pass block win rate this season, which doesn't impress anybody. Now, I know the Rams have only got 5 postseason sacks, but those 3 guys, Donald, Floyd, and Miller, have 4.5 of them. Gaines has the other half of the sack. You look at the regular season, Donald had 12.5 sacks, Floyd had 9.5, and Miller had 5 in his 8 games after coming over from Denver. Like we said, if Cincinnati can't give Burrow time to throw, it's going to be a long night for the Bengals. Whereas, use the voice former Bengals tight end Bob Trumpy. Let me tell you, Don, if Joe Burrow doesn't get time to throw, it's going to be a long night for Cincinnati here in the Super Bowl, and they'll go 0-3.
I like the next one. So it's Hilton against Cooper Kupp, who, by the way, got 1 vote for most valuable player. As Aaron Rodgers, I think, Aaron Rodgers got 39 of the 50 votes. Brady got 10, and Cooper Kupp got the 1, final vote out there.
Well, we know that Hub Arkush did not vote for Aaron Rodgers. So.
We know that much, yeah. Maybe that's the one who got the Cooper Kupp, vote. Although, frankly, I thought Cooper Kupp was worthy of a lot more than 1 vote. That's me. So yeah, that's going to be an interesting matchup.
Yeah, I mean, Hilton is their slot corner. I mean, so he's going to be locked up on Kupp a lot because Kupp makes most of his catches out of the slot.
Right.
System, you've got Van Jefferson and OBJ on the outside. We know Kupp led the league in receptions, receiving yards, and receiving scores. Hilton gave up 61 catches out of 85 targets for 653 yards and 4 touchdowns. He only had 2 interceptions. Opposing quarterbacks posted a QB rating of just under 100 against him. If Hilton can't contain Kupp and at least keep him in check to some extent, I mean, let's face it, you're not going to keep Kupp off the stat sheet. There's no way in hell.
Right.
But you can't let him go off and catch 10, 12 balls for 150 yards, or Cincinnati has no prayer, because if you can't cover him, how are you going to cover Beckham and Jefferson? And it doesn't sound like Higbee is going to play. And Kendall Bryant at tight
speaking of Cooper Cup, and you talked earlier about Steve Tasker. Okay, guys like Steve Tasker, Cooper Cup. Um, I'm trying to think of shoot, the guy that I'm blanking on the guy from New England that was spent so many years. Sorry, Walker. Yeah, Wes Walker. Um, those possession receivers that OBJ is going to always be the guy who's running outside the numbers, right? But Cooper Cup, I don't. What's been amazing to me about him is this is a kid who just runs perfect routes,
Right.
and that's rare. And then then not only is he good at that, he can improvise. If he looks over and sees that Matt Stafford's in trouble, he breaks a route off, and he almost has this second sense like Walker did, and the relationship between Jim and Tasker in Buffalo, where they know so much about their own quarterback that they're going to do whatever they can to get open. If it's a perfect situation, then that's cool because they run the route perfectly. If it's not, they are great at improvising.
Yeah, Andre Reed was really good with it.
Yeah, good point. Yeah, Andre Reed definitely 100%. He was very good at that. There were a number who were. I mean, I'm just singling out a few, but
right.
Those were the guys who could do it. And for the position, the as you say, a slot receiver, Cooper Kupp is incredibly fast.
True.
So you got that as well.
75-yard touchdown or something against Tampa Bay.
Yeah, I remember that. I was
fully
aware of that.
That's something that gets underestimated because you don't think about it because most of the stuff is over the middle or out routes and things like
right.
that. You don't expect it to go off the field.
Right.
Like you said, you got OBJ and Jefferson.
Right.
That can go downfield and make those big plays on long pass plays. The Cup can do it too if you give him the opportunity.
Well, and definitely if you're not paying attention.
Exactly.
That's the kind of stuff will get you in a lot of trouble real quick. So, I mean, that's, I guess, why he got this one vote for MVP. But, yeah, I mean, I think a lot of people who watch football don't really appreciate what a good slot receiver can do for you. I mean, in all those in the time Pittsburgh was doing so well, you had Hines Ward. You had those kind of guys. So, I think Cooper Kupp, if nothing else, has brought back the understanding that a guy like a Cooper Kupp, a Wes Welker, as I said before, Hines Ward, all those guys, Tasker, precise route runners who are smart enough and capable enough to be on the same page with the quarterback to break it off if they need to. And definitely going to be a good. I'm glad you picked that matchup. I think that's going to be a good matchup. All right, so from the matchups.
Matchups on the next page here.
Okay.
And one was going to be Jalen Ramsey against Jamar Chase. I mean, you have to figure Ramsey's been lobbying to be the shadow on Chase since the matchup came out. Chase had a good rookie year, 81 catches, 1,455 yards, 13 touchdowns.
Mm-hmm.
He's got catches for 279 yards and a score in the playoffs. He's already got more receiving yards in the postseason than any rookie in the history of the league.
Mm-hmm.
Now, Ramsey, he allowed 58 catches on 98 targets for 624 yards with 3 touchdowns. He also picked up 4 passes. Had 16 pass breakups, forced fumble recovery. Both the quarterbacks had a 71.1 rating throwing at him this year.
Mm-hmm.
Now, just remember, if you throw an incomplete pass and it's the only pass you can throw, your rating is 39.6.
Right.
So, you're not talking about you're having a great day if you're going to get Jalen Ramsey. And it's going to be interesting. The highest shadow percentage that Ramsey had came in the fifth round when he shadowed Mike Evans. So, will we see McVay implement that here? It wouldn't be a bad decision, but you're going to have to find a way to make sure that you The run game for the Bengals, Nixon ran for over 1,200 yards and 13 touchdowns in the regular season, and had 42 receptions for 318 yards and 3. Those 16 touchdowns, I had Pete Johnson for the most scores in that season by a Bengals running back. That's right. But not Icky Woods. Right?
Icky Shuffle. Yeah.
But in the postseason, Nixon's tapered off. He's got 52 carries for 190 yards with a 3.7 yard per carry average and one score. He's got 13 receptions for 106 yards. The Rams were fourth in the league in yards per carry, allowed at 3.9. They only allowed 1 yard per carry before contact, and second in the league. Fourth in yards after contact, 2.6. The Bengals have to be able to move the ball to Nixon, if nothing else, to keep the Rams honest. Because if you've got those guys, like we talked about Miller, Donald, and all those guys, with their ears pinned back, knowing that you've got to throw, it's not going to be pretty exciting for that Bengals offensive line.
No, it's not going to be fun. That's for sure. The other thing that we're looking at here, Matthew Stafford versus the wonderful Joe Burrow from LSU. I don't know why. It's funny how people have gravitated to Joe Burrow, and it's almost like if you look at that team, right? They come in, they couldn't be cooler, they couldn't be less intimidated. And then you've got the Rams, who are playing like they're the underdog. I mean, they're always on the defense from a standpoint of the press release, the press stuff that's been done. Aaron Donald heaping praise on the Bengals as if, they don't belong in the same building with them. And Conan O'Brien had a great line the other day. He said that he hoped that Rams fans traveled to the game. He would hope that they would, go out and support their team. I mean, they played in that game against the 49ers. The two games he played against the 49ers, the one during the regular season, the last one during the regular season, and then in the playoffs, where you didn't know whether you were playing at Levi Stadium up in San Francisco Bay Area, or you're playing in at SoFi. So, of course, when it comes to Super Bowl, there are very few fans who are traditional fans. I mean, that's the amount of tickets that are sold at a corporate level, and there's a lot less of the traditional fan in the building. But we'll see. We will see how that goes from that standpoint. Out of Stan Kroenke's field, which, by the way, a lot of controversy about this. Technically, it is not a dome. All right, I get that. It's not a dome. And the reason is, if you look at the structure, the stadium literally sits inside what, in essence, is a canopy that goes over top of it.
Right.
And so around the stadium, you can, you're in the elements, whatever that may be. Inside the stadium, you look up, you see a glass ceiling. Okay, that's SoFi. So technically, no, it is not a dome stadium. I get it.
They were talking about putting a canopy in for the new stadium they're pretty well building for the Bills, but that'll never fly because everybody, you saw Ryan Fitzpatrick wearing no shirt in New England when it was 5 degrees out. They'll never go for a dome or a canopy or anything like that.
Well, I mean, no, and the other part to this is the weather. I know a lot about Southern California, and I can honestly tell you that without fear of contradiction, that you don't have to worry. The old song, "It Never Rains in Southern California"? Well, it does, but it doesn't run that often, and it certainly doesn't rain in a time when it's going to affect the game. So, I'm not sure you need a dome stadium, but hey, it's Kroenke's money, not mine. And so,
there's the follow-up to that song where it always rains in Seattle, so you better have it.
Well, that is true. Yeah. Portland is another city where 200 days out of the year rains. So there you go. But
105 days, it just looks like it's going to.
Yeah, there's that too. All right, so we've got you put a little few more prop bets, which you can turn into parlay. So let's take a look at those.
Sure.
All right.
Up the one that we talked about the last couple of days on this page with Evan McPherson going over 7.5 points. Obviously, we talked about how the Bengals, he's got 40 points in the postseason. Mm-hmm. I think it's pretty straightforward 7.5, considering he's kicked 4 field goals in each of the first 3 playoff games for them. We've talked about Kupp and what he can do as a receiver when you lead the league receiving the regular season and reception and touchdowns. I think he can go over that mark. Cam Akers, we said Darrell Henderson is supposed to be back. So you throw in him, you throw in Sony Michel, you throw in the fact that Cam Akers hasn't done anything besides fumble the ball with any kind of consistency. He'll probably come in under 63.5 yards. I look for Stafford to go over 300 yards passing at plus 135. He had 3, I think it was against San Francisco or 310, something like that.
Yeah.
360 today. So that shouldn't be an issue. This number's actually going up now. The first quarter total, they're now putting at 9.5 points, which is a little bit scarier. But
on the first quarter total?
Yeah, it went from 7.5 to 9.5 now.
Okay.
9.5 seems a little bit scary, but I still think it'll be a 7-3 game.
Mm-hmm.
I'll lean towards the over. We said McPherson with field goals. He's kicked 4 in each of the first 3 games. I don't see him not kicking at least 2. Stafford to throw 3 touchdowns. That's just 3, not 4 or 7 or 15.
Right. It's the specific number.
Correct. Aaron Donald will go over 4.5 tackles. You have to think he's going to be in the middle of it. Any time that Joe Mixon tries to run between the tackles, he's going to see 99 there.
Yep.
And an interesting story about that, Jim, about pass rush, we were talking about that. Mm-hmm. Aaron Donald's pass rush win rate when he was double teamed was the same as TJ Watt's for the whole season.
Let me ask you a question about Aaron Donald. Does he in any way remind you of the late Reggie White? Or Bruce Smith, someone you knew from there?
To a point, but I mean, Donald, he has to deal with so much in the middle with getting double teamed by the guard and center, or both guards.
Right.
Or guards, a center, and a tackle. It's like half the time you just got to put the whole freaking offensive line on.
Right.
And they still can't block the guy.
Right.
He reminds me of kind of like the way Carl Eller or Jim Marshall.
Oh, going way back to the Purple People Eaters.
Or Wilson, Rosie Greer, those guys.
Yeah.
Where it didn't matter if you put 17 guys on them, they just found a way to get free anyway.
Well, that's what I was saying about Reggie White. I mean, you could put the entire offensive line on him and still think he'd drag him back, and still get the work.
Ted Hendricks was another good one.
Yeah.
But yeah, he does follow that again because he's basically unblocked.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that way he does remind me of White and Smith and those guys. Mm-hmm. I remember Jeff Criswell used to hate lining up across from Bruce Smith. He'd get flagged for 3 or 4 false starts, a couple of holding penalties, and he'd still give him 2 or 3 sacks where he was still coming out of his stance and Smith was already by him and Ken O'Brien's running for his life. Those were entertaining days in order to not so much a need for who cares? It wasn't good.
So yeah, Cooper Kupp making a first reception. That's
yeah, I think if the Rams get the ball, they're going to go to Kupp first. Like I said yesterday, if the Bengals get the ball, don't be surprised if Burrow's first pass is a dump off to Joe Mixon.
Mm-hmm.
Because he's going to be worried about getting his brains knocked out.
Right.
So that would be, I think Mixon was going off at plus 1,100, I think, for the first reception. So if the Bengals get the ball, that would be the way I would lead in that. And then we got some more here. I look for Odell Beckham to score a touchdown at any time during the game. That goes at 140. T. Higgins, I look to score for Cincinnati. I actually like him scoring more than Jamar Chase because I think Ramsey's going to pretty much make that a difficult task. So Higgins at plus 155. I look for the first scoring play to be a field goal because God knows Cincinnati can't score in the red zone. 4 touchdowns, 11 trips in the playoffs. So plus 165 there. I look for the Gatorade color, for those of you that are interested in that, blue for the last 3 years. That's going at plus 400. I think the favorite right now is orange. But, team colors don't necessarily play a factor in that.
Yeah.
Because we haven't picked up blue Gatorade last year, getting blue in their uniform. And Joe Mixon, if he's going to score a TD, I expect to be in the first half at plus 275. We talked about Cooper Cup coming up. More at plus 125. We'll come out of the slot over there. Kind of been the forgotten man in the playoffs because Higgins and James get a lot of targets. But if you're going to get real quick, you don't have long to build on the field. Boy, it'll be a nice safety battle. I like the outcome of the first single drive to be a field goal attempt. First offensive play, I don't expect either team to hand the ball off on first down. Like you said, you go with what got you here, and that's throwing the ball.
Mm-hmm.
I like Stafford to win the MVP. I think the Rams win. I'm going to say a touchdown, 7 to 8 points inside of the 7 to 12 range. But that's what I look for in that.
It's by all means, if past this prologue, we've had. Is it too much to ask that we have a good game this time? Because so many of the games in the playoffs have been so compelling. It's just amazing. I mean, we had that one Sunday that was not a good Sunday for either you or me. And that was the Sunday when you can't believe that Matthew Stafford could lead a team to an actual field goal to win with just 45 seconds on the clock. And then 13 seconds in the night game of that on that Sunday, where you're sitting there going, 13 seconds, no problem. We're going to overtime, and we're going to win. I'm sorry, and suddenly you look up and not so fast. So we've had more than our share of entertaining postseason games. Is it too much to ask, I guess, to whether or not we're going to get a good Super Bowl or not?
Well, we can always hope, but you never know with these things because, I mean, we talked about we think the Bengals are probably there. They're probably a year ahead.
Right.
And the Rams, like you said, they're going for broke. They can't afford to can down the road, kind of like we talked about with the Saints before, when they restructured contracts, and then they didn't have Drew Brees anymore. It's going to be interesting, but I just think that the youth and the inexperience catches up with Cincinnati here, man.
It usually does, but
I've been saying that for 3 straight weeks, and it hasn't panned out yet. So.
That's the beauty of the Super Bowl in many ways is what we used to see happen in World Series, where role players who you can't, guys like Gene Tennis, for the Oakland Athletics, and Bucky Dent, or as they know him in Boston, that bleeping Bucky Dent.
Right.
Guys,
yeah.
Go ahead.
Bucky effing Dent.
Right. Yeah. Those guys, suddenly show up. It's the same thing in Super Bowl. There's guys that you're just not gonna. You look at and go, really? This is the guy, huh?
Look at Timmy Smith.
Yeah. There are more than a few of those. So.
Nobody thought about Doug Williams in that Super Bowl either because, he had his time in Tampa Bay, and then, he was the backup to, Jay Schrader.
Yeah, he had.
He was the backup to Jay Schrader.
I will tell you, I was actually at One Buck Place. Maybe 15 people that were there when Doug had a signing in downtown, and he came out to One Buck Place to take a look at One Buck Place. And I was producing McKay's show at that time, and so we're out there doing some stuff that getting ready. Back in those days, the draft was not the epic 3-day orgy that it has become. And so we were there to shoot some stuff. So we're sitting there, and there comes Doug, and he comes out and he's talking to the coaches and everybody, and getting to know a few people out there. so one of the guys from one of the local papers, one of the photographers, says to Doug, could you throw a football? Now, mind you, he is in a suit wearing, regular shoes. They flip him a football. He throws the ball probably 60 plus yards in the air and overshot the, the scrub wide receiver who just happened to be there working on that day. And you sit there and went, wow, this guy's got an arm that doesn't quit. And he willed the Bucks to a championship game against in '79 against the Rams. Doug was, as you say, he had the greatest first half of any quarterback in the history of the Super Bowl in that game that he beat John Elway and the Denver Broncos down in San Diego.
Remember when he signed with the Oklahoma USFL?
Yeah, actually, I saw him because he was traded from there to the Arizona Wranglers of the USFL, and I was doing USFL football those days. I saw Doug. We, hung out for a few minutes and had some ice cream together because it was 102 degrees and we're getting ready to play a football game. And of course they tell him
7:30 in the morning.
Yeah. So yeah. I mean, there are always those kind of players that suddenly show up from out of nowhere, but you never know. Hey guys, we're gonna have a Super Bowl show noon to 2 on Sunday. Okay. By all means, take your little red pen out and mark it, put it in your calendars, and come and join us because we're going to have a lot of fun. Okay, we're going to have some of the motley crew that we've had on this show will be there. Rob Riley's going to join us, who's covered his, I think, 15th Super Bowl. We have L.A. Bachelor, who, L.A., and he's going to bring the Bachelor Radio Network with him. So they'll be asking us questions all day long. And we'll have Ray Kennedy, the congenial one, who last time we spoke to him was sitting in a car on the Intercoastal trying to make us all feel bad.
Hanging up himself.
Yeah, hanging up on himself, which is very Ray. So we're going to have some fun, some motley characters. We're going to have some of our buddies from Picks and Parlays who are going to be joining us. So if you're going to have need of any kind of advice on what you want to do for the Super Bowl, I can assure you're going to have more than a few.
Content bring out for IUPUI Sunday.
John, keep us posted. You can always send a text or something, not a text, but a tweet.
Let us know if you make the team.
Send us a tweet and let us know if you make it. We're rooting for you, buddy.
For those of you that were wondering about non-basketball, my top options for today, just so you know,
Yep.
Utah State at home, -11 over Nevada. Wolfpack 1-7 on the road. We've seen them play some terrible basketball of late. I also like Wright State at Milwaukee, and if you the best game of the schedule, if you're going to watch that game, it would probably be Colorado State at home and Fresno State. Good team from Colorado State's favored by 6. They should get the win. I would lean towards Utah State beating up on Nevada, or like I said, Wright State over Milwaukee. On the ice, Anaheim over Seattle, Winnipeg over Dallas over Winnipeg. Both those teams playing their first game out of the break. Stars coming in off a 4-3 win over Nashville. The Jets beat Minnesota 2-0 at home, but now they have to go on the road. And in the NBA, why not? We talked about how bad Detroit Pistons were yesterday. They proceeded completely schmuck the Grizzlies. They're home tonight against the Hornets for Charlotte. After 6.5 game losing streak, we get back over 500 by beating the Pistons in Motor City. It should be interesting, to say the least.
There you go. All right, well, stay tuned because at 3 o'clock it's Scott and Scott with Back to the Window. And before we get out of here real quick, don't forget to smash that like button, hit the subscribe button, and join us on Sunday at noon Eastern Time till 2 p.m. Eastern Time, when we're going to have a lot of fun with a fun Super Bowl pregame show. I know you guys are, waiting for the game. Want to
Bring your own host.
Yeah, bring we'll have a house party here. Okay. All right, folks. So look, for Chris King, I'm Jim Williams saying so long, everybody. We'll look forward to seeing you. If you can't see us on Sunday, got that. Drop back on Monday, okay? Don't forget the podcast, okay? Every day, right after this show is over, you just jump over, hit the links in the bottom. Doesn't matter where you get your podcast from, whether it's Apple or Spotify or Amazon Music. We're there. If you have an assistant device like Google or Alexa, just ask them to play Just Parlays with Chris King, and guess what? They'll do it for you. How about that? So,
And don't forget any questions. You can always find me, and I'll do my best to answer you.
on Betting Royalty,
Right.
because that's what he is. He's the king. Heavy is the head. Heavy is the head that wears the crown. He's got the crown, or that direction. He's got the crown. So, all right, guys, have a wonderful, and gals, have a wonderful and safe weekend. We wish you all the best if you're gonna wager on the Super Bowl. And
Good luck for IUPUI, John.
Yeah.
Hands out.
John, we wish you the best, my friend. We still don't know what position you're trying out for, but absolutely. All right, well, take care, everybody, and we will see you on either Sunday or Monday, okay? When you come back and look at us talk about just parlays. All right, have a great one, folks. Be careful out there. Okay, it ended before the clubs played, but
It worked.
yep.